call now, which is absolutely brilliant. Thanks, Shane.
All right, everyone able to see my screen okay here?
Yep, I can see your screen. Thanks, Shane.
Okay, so I wanted to do a quick introduction of myself here, and then I'll jump a little bit into the topic and kind of my background, and then we'll go right into the demo. We have a few. Can we have everyone who is not speaking go on mute, just so we don't have any background?
I'm just looking after that, Shane. I'll just get onto it.
Okay, thank you.
Looking for the controls.
Perfect. So yeah, Shane Smyth here. I'm actually based out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, in the United States. I have been in the Salesforce space for a little over 6 years now, primarily in the Marketing Cloud space. I've done cross clouds, so I've done a lot of Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, a little bit Heroku, and kind of diving into part out of Marketing Cloud. I have been with a couple of different consulting firms throughout the years. My current one is horizontal integration, and I lead our AI practice here and part of our Salesforce practice as well. This topic right now is very near and dear to my heart. It's kind of how I got started in Marketing Cloud by a session of this sort, and through the building up of the Salesforce practice with horizontal. We have started an academy as part of our consulting firm that takes this concept and kind of extends it out throughout a 3-month curated program as we bring people on into our practice. So a lot of the content and things that we'll talk about today, we're also using in an actual business capacity. So I hope the content is valuable. Like Matt said, stop me as we go throughout this if you have any questions, and I'll answer them as best I can. And then when we actually get in the tool and demo it a little bit, feel free to stop me then as well. So just recap on the agenda, we'll talk about a little bit about what is Marketing Cloud, setting the ground and the framework for the conversation. We'll go into how to do a single email send, and then we'll talk a little bit about resources and how do you get to the next step after this webinar. So really quick to set the stage here, Marketing Cloud is Salesforce's B2C platform for sending. It is used for more than just B2C, but that's the primary use here. And you can see kind of in the middle of the screen right here, we have all these different icons here. Marketing Cloud is made up of several different types of ways you can communicate with your customers. That they span between email, SMS, push notification, sending out ad messages through Facebook, Google, and several other social networks, doing listening on social networks. And then you have a couple different builders over here in studios on the right-hand side that really help you organize and orchestrate this experience for your customer. And then also manipulate the data and do segmentation to really personalize the message you're sending to them. So think of Marketing Cloud as this giant engine that allows you to curate the content that goes out to your customers. So just providing a one level up view of this. This is, and you guys may be familiar with this if you've ever seen any of the Salesforce content, these are the experiences, the clouds that make up Salesforce as it is today. This would probably change tomorrow if they kept it up to date with all the acquisitions they made. But right now, these are the main ones they focus on. So you can see that this spans between marketing, which I have highlighted in color over here, and it goes to commerce and analytics and communities and sales and service and all the other pieces of the Salesforce cloud. But for today's conversation, we'll focus just on marketing. So a little bit about what we're going to do today. This is going to be really basic. We're going to keep it super high level. We're going to create a data extension. We're going to talk a little bit about what a data extension is, some of the aspects of data extensions. We'll populate that with information, and we'll actually use my own email address in here to show you what that looks like. We will create an email, talk a little bit about the content and the imagery around that. We will send the actual email to myself, and then we'll view some of the metrics after the fact. All right, cool. So demo time. All right, so this right here is Marketing Cloud. This is normally the first screen you're going to see when you pop in. I'm actually going to switch over here real quick. 1 second. up here on the top-hand side, you have your apps. You have your studios and you have your builders. This is how you either create the content or determine who you're going to send the content to. So the first place that I like to go is Email Studio. Email Studio right now is the place that kind of joins both the sending of a email and also the creation of that email. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go into the email app. We're going to go into subscribers and go into data extensions. Inside of Marketing Cloud, there's a concept of subscribers and contacts. Those are the two ways that Marketing Cloud references the individuals you send to. So this is not an account level. This is not a group level. This is an individual basis. So this is, Shane Smyth in Minnesota, in the, his household email address. That's who we're sending to. So these data extensions, think of them as table structures that we're able to hold the information we need in order to send an email. So the first thing right off the bat everyone's going to know is we need the email to send the email. So that's definitely part of the data extension, but it expands past that. It's very common to have your email on there, your first and last name, maybe your zip code, city, state, maybe some other personalized information about you. If we're talking to a retail store, maybe we have your primary location of your store there. Maybe we have information about when you last purchased. All this information is extremely valuable to the people who use Marketing Cloud because this lets them determine when and how and what content to show inside of the email body and copy. So to kind of take it back again, we'll start with kind of showing you what the end result of a data extension looks like, and then I'll go in and actually create one for you guys real time. So we're actually going to go up to a data extension called All Contacts. And these data extensions are completely custom. So the All Contacts is just a name I provided it. I use All Contacts pretty frequently through our implementations with our clients because it just references the top level source of where all of my contacts live, and I kind of can use that to trickle down into different newsletters and segmentations as I see fit. So you can see once we pop into this data extension that we have a couple different places on here. So a lot of information you're seeing right now, but the important thing right now is to view the fields on the right-hand side. You can see all these personalized views that I was just talking about, the email address here, first and last name, some of your location information, phone number, device, home store, and created date. You can also see that we have the ability to determine what the data type is, the length, a primary key, and nullable. So you have that ability to kind of modify how this structure of the data extension should be created and can be created. So I'm going to pause here for a second. Any questions on this section about data extensions or what it can entail? Okay. So I'm actually going to pop over to records just to show you a view of what this could look like. So we're actually looking at actual records inside of this data extension. You can see that we have 7 individuals in here. And you can see their information has been populated throughout their records. Some of them are completely filled out, some of them aren't. That's pretty typical in a production instance. You don't always have 100% data accuracy on all your records. So we have all this information in here. And you can also see this concept of a primary key and a subscriber key. I'm going to just quickly reference this. This is probably maybe a 102 level topic, but very, very high level. Subscriber key is Marketing Cloud's terminology for the unique identifier they use across the system. So the subscriber key can be a text string, it can be the email address, it can be a number string. It really just depends on the application, but it's always important to keep a unique identifier across the system so that you don't create duplicates. So I'm going to pop back out to our folder structure here, and I'm actually going to create a new data extension. So if you look at the top right-hand corner, we're going to click Standard Data Extension. There are a couple different types of data extensions. We're going to focus on the standard one, but you do have the ability to create filters. And filters would allow you to take 100,000 record individual data extension and segment it down to maybe 20,000 individuals who you want to send for a specific promotion. But we'll stick with standard for our example here. So we're going to have the ability to name it as we want. So I'll do a demo for our instance. And you can also optionally add a description in here. Very important here that you click is sendable. This actually allows you to send to the data center, which is going to be important for us later on. Marketing Cloud also has a concept of campaigns. This allows you to group multiple sends and data extensions together so you can do better reporting at the very end of your sends here. Data extensions also have the ability for data retention. This is the ability for your records to actually roll off over time if you have that use case. In most traditional sending data extensions, we're actually sending out to these individuals. You won't be using this. You would maybe use this in more of a transactional sense where maybe you're processing orders or items, but for this use case, we're going to leave it off, but you do have that ability. Okay, so here's the meat of it. This is where we're going to add fields. So we're going to add 4 fields onto this data extension. The first one is going to be the subscriber key. We're going to leave this as text and length of 50. You can modify this, and it's a best practice as you're kind of doing implementation or as you're working in Marketing Cloud to keep the length and data type as accurate as possible as your actual data. This helps you save on space, make sure the system processes as efficiently as possible, but also helps you with keeping your data as clean as possible. We're going to mark this as primary key because we want only one instance of the subscriber key in our data extension at a time. The next one is going to be the most important one, email address here. It's very important that you have the data type marked as email address in this field. Otherwise, when you go to send this data extension, you won't successfully be able to process that send, and it won't work because there won't be an email address identified, and Marketing Cloud won't know what to do with it, essentially. We're not going to mark either one of these because we do not want an instance where email address is blank. We want it to be non-nullable. And then we're going to add first name right here. And we're also going to leave that as a text field and length of 50. This can be nullable, however. And we're going to do a last name. And we're going to do the same thing as null here. So that's it. That's the field creation of a data extension. I will note one thing on the bottom here. The send relationship is extremely important, and it relates to the subscriber key that I was talking about earlier. And if I could spell subscriber right. Okay, so then we're going to select what field relates to the subscriber relationship. So I'm not going to go too much into this, but it's important that you map these together, and basically you want to map your unique identifier of your system to the subscriber key on the right-hand side here. So I'm going to click Create, and we have our first demo data extension here. So I can pop right into this demo data extension, and I can review all the things we just did. You can see that everything over here lines up with what we just saw in the last view. And if we go over to records, it's not going to have any records in here. So that's going to be our next step. We're going to import a few records. So I'll pause here for a second. There's actually 2 ways in Marketing Cloud that you can, well, actually more, but 2 main ways that you can import into a data extension. The first way that we're actually going to do as part of the demo is an import here. An import lets you take a CSV file and import it into a data extension, and it'll populate as you import it. There's another way inside of Contact Builder, which is another app inside of Marketing Cloud to add one-off records into the data extension. But just for simplicity, we're going to stay with just the more streamlined process of doing an import. And then there's a few other ways through, FTP and processes that kind of allow you to push data into data extensions. So for our use case here, we're going to pull up Excel. I have a Excel file here, or a CSV file that already kind of has a structure here. So when you're going to do this import, you are going to want to map your column heads up here with the same column heads that are in the data extension. So you can see if there's a one-to-one relationship between the subscriber key, email, first name, last name here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to enter my email address. Okay, so you can see this is a good example how our subscriber key and email address are the same. This, however, does not need to be the case. We could have this value be, 1, 2, 3, 4. If you have Salesforce as your CRM system, this subscriber key will actually be the 18-digit ID that is either your lead or contact record. That's getting a little more into the advanced topics there, but kind of just know that this is a part of the equation. So I'm going to save this, and then I will just simply go into our data extension here, and I will click import. It's going to pop up a wizard here that allows you to either import it from your computer or from an FTP file location. We're going to do from our computer here, and we're going to go to demo. And it is going to know that it's comma right here. You can also do tab delimited, and you can do pipe delimited if you wanted to switch this and put a pipe in here. Ours is a comma, so we're going to leave that selected. You also have the ability to change what type of import. So by default, it's going to do add update, but you also have the ability to do add or update only or overwrite. We don't have anything in here, so it really doesn't matter what we end up doing. But as you are importing data into an existing data extension, this is very important to watch out for, because if you have 100,000 people in a data extension and you accidentally overwrite it with 5 people, you're probably going to be pretty upset. So make sure you keep that on your radar. So I'm going to leave it as add update. And then there's a few import options really relating with how you create your import file, but we won't talk too much about that. So I'm going to click next here, and it's going to automatically detect the headers and map it for me. I have the option to map it manually and toggle which ones these are. Sometimes you'll have Excel files that don't have the exact name, and so it won't know which one to map it to. You can simply just tab over here and change the drop down to the one you want. I'm going to leave it for map by header row. And I'm going to click next. And you have your email notification over here for your account. You can modify that to go to a different inbox. And then you kind of just do the quick once over for a review and click import. Okay, so we're going to back out, and just for you guys' use here, the breadcrumbs are at the top. This is what I found the easiest way to get back to the folder structure, the quickest way. Once you go back here, you'll see that it will very quickly import or show you the stage at what it's at for whether it's processing or if it's available. So we're going to give it a second as it's processing, and we'll see now that we have one record in here. So I'm going to pop back in this data extension into the records, and I can see that I am now in here. So we've successfully added someone to a data extension, our first data extension for this use case. So now that we have the data in here, we know who we're going to send to. We're going to send this to this demo data extension. We now need to know what we're going to actually send. So I'm going to go into Content Builder. Content Builder is Marketing Cloud's content creation ability. This is all about email in here. So you can see when I clicked on the content tab up here, we actually have all of our content for email related activities. So on the left-hand side, we have a folder structure here. On the right-hand side, you kind of see a quick snapshot of what things we have in here. And we can also change the view if we like to see a grid versus a list. And then you can also expand your folder structure and kind of see the different types of content pieces in here. I'm going to quickly review what type of content pieces are, but we won't go into many more than just the email type of content. If you look on the top right-hand side, you see the create. When you drop that down, you're going to see a couple different types of content or things you can create. The first and foremost is email message. We're going to go into that for a second. You also have the ability in Marketing Cloud to create templates. So templates are a really important thing to understand for Marketing Cloud. You want to be able to gain efficiencies as much as possible when you're creating these emails. So what you'll normally do is create a set of 2 to 5 templates that really span all the types of communication you have. So if you're thinking of like a retail store that sends email out, multiple times throughout a day, the copy is different, the blocks are different. You're sending some transactional, you're sending some commercial, but a lot of the framework is the same. So a company like that would create 2 to 5 different templates with different block arrangements and maybe different slight color differences based on what type of message they they will send, and then they'll create their emails off those templates, and it lets them kind of get started quicker and quicker versus having to hard code an HTML, create every single email. So it makes the actual creation of these campaigns and these emails inside of Marketing Cloud significantly easier than they were a couple of years ago. The other section here is content blocks. So the different type of content that we can drag and drop into our email. And you can see that it spans from buttons to free form to HTML blocks to image carousels and a couple other ones down here. We'll use a couple of those throughout this. And then we have the ability to upload images if we wanted to, which is very useful when we're creating emails. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to click email message, and it's going to pop up the themed and all the templates that we have in our system. So there are 4 different types. There's basic right here. So you can see that they have some templates in here that have some, lorem ipsum content and image placeholders, and they're all styled, or I should say frameworked a little bit differently. So we have, a hero with a one column, 3, then 1, and 1, 2, 3. So you can kind of pick which ones you need in your instance. They also have themed one, which kind of adds a little bit layer of branding on top of it, and then you have your saved one, which are your custom ones in your instance. So most people have a variation of this basic one with a little bit of their branding on top of it. So this use case, I'm going to do this hero 1 column, one of the simpler ones. I'm going to call this demo email. So we have the ability here as well to add a description of what this email is. You also have the ability to change location here. So if you had, a campaign folder structure, you would most likely add it there. And then you also see here that we have campaigns, as I mentioned in the data extensions as well. So you can tie the 2 of them together very easily. Oh, must be unique. Apparently I already have a demo email. Let's do demo email 1. So we're going to add some content here. So you can see on the right-hand side, this is our canvas area right here. This is where all of our content is. It shows you in real time as you're making changes. On the left-hand side, this is our edit section. So these are all the blocks that we can drag over. And then once we drag over a piece of content or we dive into one of the blocks, you can see that things start changing over here on the left-hand side, and I can start making edits real time. So one of the first things I like to do is add the subject line. You can see that's already notifying me that there needs to be a subject line. So I'm going to simply say, thanks for listening. Okay, we're going to save that, so it's going to stop notifying us up here. So I'm going to do a couple of little modifications here to this template to get some actual content in here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to replace this image block up here with a logo. So I'm going to actually delete this, and I'm going to browse. And I have a couple images already stock in here. So I'm actually going to do a Salesforce themed email here. So I'll create the Salesforce, click the Salesforce logo up here. You can notice that it comes in very big. You have some modification ability here on the left-hand side to kind of scale it to the way you want it. So I'm going to uncheck this box and make some modifications to the width. So this kind of shows you that you don't have to do everything outside of the tool and make a bunch of Photoshop edits and everything. You can do a lot of this inline inside of the email, which makes the content editor and the marketer's life a lot easier here. So you have the ability to do image borders and widths and alignment. So if I wanted this left instead of centered, I could do that. I could also add a link. So maybe I want this to go to Salesforce.com. And I'm going to save that. So now whenever someone clicks on the Salesforce logo, they'll go to the Salesforce page. And then I'm going to start making some edits down here in our body copy. So same drill here with this image block. I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to bring in one of the Salesforce themed banners that you'll probably be familiar with if you've ever seen Trailhead before. So we're going to leave a lot of this the same. It's going to scale to fit. And so in this case, if we uncheck this, it would become way too large. This is a high-res image. So we're going to leave this scale to fit so that it stays within the 600 pixel bounds of this email. And the next section we want to modify is we want to modify this content down here below. So one of the really advantageous things of Marketing Cloud is the ability to personalize. So we're actually going to use some of the data that we collected inside of our data extension, and we're going to do thanks for attending. And then we want to do a personalization here for the actual first name of the individual. So you have this ability up here to use your data extension values here. So what I can do is I can choose a new data source, and it's actually going to allow you to choose your data extension. And when you do that, it will show you all of the values in that data extension that you can actually use for personalization. And it's just for your guys' reference, it's being a little bit wonky right now. They just did a release and there's a little bit of a formatting error here, but normally looks a little bit better. But we're going to use our first name here, and it's going to add this personalization string, which is preceded and appended by these percents. And it basically says, when I send this email, go look for that data element and populate it with the information for the individual. So we're going to leave the rest of lorem ipsum for now and go to the next step because I think we're running out of time here. We're going to go to button copy here. So maybe we'll do rate our webinar. This, you kind of see the button change over here as I'm making edits over here. I have the ability to change the font and the color of the font and a lot of the other information about the radius of the button and all the things you would expect with a normal WYSIWYG here. All right, so I'm gonna click done on that, and you'll notice that we have a semi-formed email at this point. So I think this is in a good enough spot here that we can go to preview and test. So once you make your content updates here, the next step is to preview and test to make sure that everything looks okay. I made one slight error here. We actually need to add some required information at the very bottom of this, which is the physical mailing address and the profile center. These two are required by CAN-SPAM or by Castle or by whatever compliance that you're in that part of the region. So I'm going to go to the next step here, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go and select my data extension. So this allows you to preview as if you were sending to that audience we just created. You'll notice that I selected my data extension demo. I'm selecting the one individual we have in here. I'm going to click select. And what it's going to do is it's going to populate as if this was in the person's inbox. So you can see that it did change to Shane right here for my first name. We have the rest of the email populated here, and you can notice that we can preview this with our mobile and desktop, and we're experiencing a little bit of funkiness down here with the footer, so it's not collapsing as it should, but it definitely does do that. And then we're done with our email content. So we have an email that we can view here. We have the ability to send out a test if we wanted to. You can send out a test immediately right here, and then you can do a little bit of inbox previewing if you have a Litmus account. Now that we have this done, though, we actually want to send it out. So we're going to click Save and Send. You have a couple of options here on the left-hand side. You have the ability to choose who it's coming from, and this ability will you can change based on your business unit or your maybe your sub-brand inside of the business there. But we're going to leave it as is for now. And then as we go to our next tab, we see that the select audience allows us to choose our data extension. You can take this and you can drag it over to target. And we're going to select all subscribers because this is where our status of our individuals live. And then automatically is checked down here the deduplication of subscribers. So this will automatically remove any duplicate email addresses so that you only send to an individual once in a single send. We're going to click next. This is important, so you can either send immediately or you can schedule for a future date. So it's very easy to toggle between the two of them. We're going to send immediately because we want to get this going here. And then we're going to review everything. We're going to look at our email. Looks good. The target total, so we're going to one individual to our demo data extension here. And the delivery is immediate. This all looks correct to me. So we're going to check this box and click Ready to Send. All right. email successfully sent. So now we've created our data extension where we hold our information. We have populated it with information. We've created the email and the content structure that we needed to, and we've now sent. The very last step here is to go into tracking and sends, and this is where you're actually going to see the metrics of the individuals we're sending to. This may take a minute for it to populate. It's still in progress right now, but once it does populate, you're going to be able to dive in here and you're going to be able to see how many you sent to, your delivery rate, how many bounces you may have had based on bad email addresses or your reputation, and you'll also be able to see the opens and clicks and the forwards and conversions. And all this information will be populated. So I will pause there because that is the end of our demo here, and it will probably take a minute for it to populate. But do you have any questions?
Thanks, Shane, for running through that. Everyone's on mute at the moment, but I guess if you've got a question, just feel free to unmute yourself. I was watching you go through that, and I guess one of the questions that I had, I could see the AMP script where you put the first name in there. Can you also do that with the subject line?
Yep, great question. We can absolutely do that with the subject line as well. I'm going to navigate back to this demo email here. You do have the ability inside of this subject line to also, you see the person here as well that we were seeing earlier. We can also add that personalization string in here. It's going to look exactly the same. And you can do a little more complex stuff here as well as you can in the body.
Oh, that's awesome. So that means you could say, hello, Shane, thanks for listening to the webinar instead of just thanks for listening to the webinar. It's a really good control. Are there any other questions that people have got at the moment? Can you think of anything else, Shane, that jumps to your mind that it's good to point out at this stage?
I have a couple of references I will show here in a second, but feel free to speak up. I either bored everyone to sleep or I was so thorough that there are no questions.
No, what you've done has been very good, and I know, reflecting back to when I first started with Marketing Cloud, having this sort of resource is absolutely brilliant. There are 13 people on the call, so I don't think you've bored them all to tears. I think everyone's just following along. But please do feel free to ask questions.
I was just going to say, for me, it's one thing to see it in a demo. Then, in order to come up with the questions, I have to actually do it myself and work through it. And then I go, okay, how does that work? Or why didn't this work? Or that helps me make the connection, I think, rather than questions that come from watching a demo.
Would that be a value if we ran a session where you could have some hands-on to do something similar to this?
For me, it would, yes.
Yeah. Okay. And let's see if we can get that arranged.
Yeah, that's one of the hurdles right now with Marketing Cloud. And if you guys are familiar with the Sales Cloud or Service Cloud landscape, you have the ability to spin up a dev org, whenever you want. But with Marketing Cloud, you do not have that ability. So it's really either you're part of a company that has it or you're part of a consulting firm that has it at this point. So it's having a hands-on experience is fairly difficult, but I think we could probably arrange something in this developer group here.
Yeah, we do have, let's see what we can do.
Okay, it looks like there is a question in the chat.
Okay.
So what if you want to make a fake order like an order confirmation email? So not exactly sure the full depth of the question there. I just happen to have an order confirmation email in this account that does populate order confirmation email based on a data extension. Is that the essence of the question? Okay. Yep. So let me just show this real quick. So I'm going to preview this with a different data extension here that I have spun up already. I believe it was this one. So when I populate this information here, you can see that on the right-hand side over here is populating the order ID numbers. It's populating the order ID, it's populating the quantity, the store, the total, and order. And this is not formatted super well, and it's a little bit unorthodox in how you'd show this right here. But it gives a good example of the possibilities with the personalization language in here. If you guys are interested in this specific example, I actually have a YouTube video that goes through this in depth on how you'd actually create this.
I feel as though that wraps up the questions that we've got there.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. One last thing I wanted to leave with everyone is this slide right here. This kind of goes through where do you look for more information? What sources are there right now? So there are a handful of pages here. So you have a couple of chatter pages, which I believe a lot of you probably have seen before. There's the Salesforce Stack Exchange. There's obviously Trailhead. I've linked into my own personal trail mix for how do you get started in Marketing Cloud. There's some community events, and then there's a YouTube channel that I've started to put together on some of these basic topics here. And then obviously we're all welcome to connect with individuals on LinkedIn and answer questions as you guys have them.
I think in terms of getting questions answered, Stack Exchange is such a powerful place. There's so much information there, the questions, and it's some real key people that you can really follow in on that channel with. But it's definitely a go-to place to get help. The Trailhead communities are really good. Like we're part of that community. This is part of that now. And together we work stuff out, and that's how it works most of the time. There is documentation out there, but talking to each other and just leaning on each other a little bit with questions, get stuff worked out. Also, this group's got a Slack group, and you're more than welcome to join that. It's Salesforce sfmcdg.slack.com. Reach out if you would like an invite to that. It's also a great way of getting some sort of back channel help with digging through information on questions and getting started with thoughts and on the topics that you might be interested in. But Shane, thank you very much for doing this today. It's been absolutely awesome.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, thanks. Bye.